Welcome to this week's episode of Live Without Whales. I am thrilled to be here with you tonight with my friend Connie Albers, who is the author of a brand new, well, it's almost ready to be released book called Parenting Beyond the Rules, Raising Teens with Confidence and Joy. Whoops, I didn't even have that on the screen. And we will talk more with her in just a second and lots about the book and the topics in the book. But first, let me do just a few housekeeping details so you can feel comfortable here during the show. Connie and I are here inside of Crowdcast, but we are live streaming to Facebook and YouTube. So if you are watching us from Facebook or YouTube, of course, you're welcome to just hang out there and watch what's going on. But we want you to know that all the comments that we're seeing and responding to and the questions that we answer at the end are inside the Crowdcast broadcast. So if you want to join us here in Crowdcast, look in the video description for the link and you can hop right on in here and join us. If you are watching from Crowdcast, I recommend watching from a browser, from a laptop or a desktop because, thumb typing. But if you are on a mobile device, that'll work perfectly fine too. Just wanted to turn it in landscape mode. Press the little box in the top right corner to see full screen view and then tap view chat and you'll be able to see everything that's going on, and you can certainly comment with your thumbs if you prefer. At the bottom of the screen, right underneath our faces, there are two buttons you're going to want to know about. One is the poll. It's fun for us. It's completely anonymous, but it's just kind of fun to see a landscape of our audience. So my question tonight is, how old is your oldest child? And Connie, at the time that I'm talking about this right now, over 60% say their oldest child is in the 9 to 12 range. So we've got a lot of folks who are, heading right for the teen years, and I'm sure have lots of questions about what that's going to be like and how to be loving to their children as they enter those years. And then right next to the poll button is a button that says ask a question right down there. And we've already got 2 questions lined up. And if you've got questions at any time during the broadcast, you can drop them in there. And you can also upvote questions. So if you see a question and you think, oh man, I really would like to know the answer to that too, go ahead and vote it up, because sometimes we have time to get to all the questions. Sometimes there are too many and we have to just go with a few. So it helps me to know which ones are going to be helpful and of interest to the most people. Let's see. And if you, in the comments, if you say something that would work better as a question, or that, I want Connie to have an opportunity to refer to later at the end, I can actually add that to the ask a question box so that we'll be able to get to that after she finishes sharing with us about her book. So without further ado, let's hop on over and chat with Connie about parenting beyond the rules. So I would love for you to tell us, Connie, just a little bit about yourself, your family, and how did you get to the place of having published a book about this topic?
Hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Sometimes I wonder myself, how did I end up publishing a book? I have 5 children, and they are between me. I'm getting a kickback, so if you hear me talk funny, it's because I'm hearing myself talk in my ears.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so basically I have 5 children in 7 years. So once we started having children, boy, we just kept going. And there were many years we had 5 teenagers, like one time, for years and years and years. And the other thing we started doing was working with teenagers in our home, just in our church and in the community. And I just started listening. What were they saying about their parents? What was helping the relationship? What was hurting the relationship? And I just had to just start journaling it. And then a few years ago, I got a whisper about, you need to write about this. And there's a really cool story about how the whole book came to be. And that was through my second daughter, or my first daughter, my second child. And I'll share that a little bit later, but I write about that in the book. So why did I write specifically about this? Because frankly, there's over 63 million teenagers in America.
Wow.
Just America. And I see what's happening in our culture. I know what's happening in homes. I know the dread, fear, that parents are starting to go, oh my gosh, I only have a few years left to shape and mold them. And what am I going to do? And that just started burning inside of me. How can I help these parents keep the heart of their teen in a world trying to steal it away? And I thought, if this book can impact just a small percentage of those 63 million teens, what a difference we could have in our culture.
Mm-hmm. Amen. And, I noticed as I was reading it and as I'm looking at the cover, it's got this, paintbrush kind of theme on here. And, that was not what I would have thought, like, oh, I'm going to get a parenting book. What would be on the cover? It would not have occurred to me first, like, oh, yes, it will probably be paintbrushes and painting. So give us a little bit of insight. I actually read a paragraph from your introduction to my Instagram story followers last night because they loved it. But give us just a little synopsis of like, what's with the paintbrushes?
All right. Well, there are 5 of them that represent my 5 children.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Yes, I do see that now. Yeah.
And there are different sizes, which means every child is unique. They have different strengths, gifts, and talents. They have different personalities. They express love and they receive love differently. What makes one happy doesn't necessarily resonate with another. So I take the mindset of your child is a masterpiece. They are formed and fashioned for a unique calling. Sometimes you have to use a broad brush and you're laying the foundation. And as every artist does, they have a vision in their mind of what they're trying to paint. And I'm looking up at a picture my daughter painted. And it just reminds me that sometimes you have to paint a picture for your family of what you want it to look like when they're 20-something, 30-something. And that's kind of the premise for the whole book. They are a masterpiece and you get a front row seat to help create it.
Love that. I love that perspective. One of the things I really enjoyed was when you were talking about unconditional love. And you started out by talking about a baby and how, even though they cry and they have all these needs and we're up in the middle of the night and it's exhausting and it's time consuming and we're doing a lot of giving and they're not doing a lot of like, it's a blessing to have a baby, but they're not doing a lot of like contributing. And yet we love them anyway. Our love for them is not based on like, what are you doing for me? But somehow that seems trickier in the teen years or maybe like not as intuitive. So I would love for you to talk to us some about what that unconditional love looks like in the teen years.
A lot of it has to do with perspective. As a child grows, they're in transition. And so we're trying to help them leave the childlikeness behind and accept responsibility that they will need for adulthood. Right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so they're not always keen on that. And it's funny because when they're little, they love to help unload the dishwasher.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they forgot how to unload the dishwasher. And you're thinking, what happened to you?
Yes. Yep.
But I would say in regards to homes unconditionally loving them, it's just reminding them that we are loved unconditionally by our Creator. And that we have the ability to love them unconditionally as well. There are hindrances to loving unconditionally, and that could be hurt feelings. That could not hurt feelings, but hurt. They could say something that hurts us. We say things that hurt them. Busyness, not being careful of what you say, not being attentive to listening to what they're telling us. Having unrealistic expectations. And so I think as moms, we've got to manage our expectations.
Yeah.
Are they realistic?
Yes, very true. And so oftentimes what we're reacting to is what we thought they were going to do or be like or be able to manage rather than like where they actually are right now.
Yeah, we have to take into consideration the maturity, their personality bends and gift. We could be expecting more of them than what they're really able to do based on our assumption. And so by taking the time to make realistic assessments of where they are and the nature of your relationship and keep asking, kind of like why questions. Another thing I love to do is bring them into the conversation. Mm-hmm. Let them be part of this growing up, transitioning period. So often teenagers want freedom. And I always say, with freedom comes responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't handle the responsibility, then you can't have the freedom. And that's completely fine. That doesn't mean we punish them. It just means they're not ready for it. So let's take a positive approach toward that instead of the negative and assuming they're just pushing back on us, or pushing back on our rules or our limits or our boundaries. And let's say, let's go beyond that. Let's find out what are you actually struggling with? And then look for areas that you can adjust. I love, what I always like to say is master the art of the pivot. We're constantly pivoting during the during the teen years.
Yeah. So a moment ago, when you talked about the analogy that you use painting, as an analogy for your book, in another portion of the book, you talk about giving our teens guidance in a way that you call painting a picture, instead of like, these are the rules, you have to do these things, more painting a picture for them. And one thing that really caught my attention was what you said about painting a picture for our teens in terms of their friends and, who they're spending time with. Tell us some more about that and what that might look like to give guidance in a painting a picture way.
One of the things that I have noticed is that we get to help them form and develop what a good friend looks like. So modeling being a friend to others, and then others having and being a friend to us. One of the things that we do is talk about what a good friend does and what a good friend doesn't, and how to choose wisely. And when we talk about painting a picture for that, and I'm sorry, I've got an echo in my ear. It's funny how you can get messed up in your mind when you hear yourself talk. But when we talk about painting a picture for friendships, we know that friends influence our children significantly during the teen years. We also know our children love to talk. Just look at their, phone record if they have an iPhone. They love to chit chat. So they will talk to someone. They need a friend. They were designed for a relationship, first with the Lord and then with others. And my premise is this: they're going to be talking to somebody. They're going to be influenced by someone. Make that someone you.
Yeah, I love that.
And so when they learn that there are ways to develop and cultivate friendships, then they themselves actually learn to be discerning and to be able to walk away and be cautious of certain folks.
Yeah, so this isn't just a situation where you kind of leave everything on autopilot and then suddenly frantically jump in and say, no, not that one. It's an ongoing, this is a conversation you've been having for a long time. This is something you've been modeling and discussing. And
absolutely. Again, they want to talk to you. The key is, are you willing to listen? Are you available?
Yeah. Well, and that transitions perfectly. And the next thing I was going to ask you about, you've got several chapters that talk about getting to know their world and what's going on with them and being good listeners. That was a fantastic chapter. Just going to highlight that one right there. You could, it would be worth the whole price of the book just for the chapter about listening. And then being careful with what we say. So if you had to pick one important thing that a mom could, leave this show tonight and go do that would help them to connect with or understand their teens, what would you say? Would that be that one thing that they could just try right away?
Don't ignore what they say. Comma, pay attention to what they're not saying.
Oh, yeah.
Listen between the words, because you will learn a lot about what's going on inside of them. Parents have to realize that your voice is inside of their head. I mean, how many of you now can think about a scenario and you can know exactly what your parent is going to say, what your mom is going to say? They're never going to get you out of their heads.
Yeah.
So you want to be a very big observer and make sure that you don't ignore what they say. Don't put them off.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a meme on Facebook the other day that said, it was one of those funny like responder things, but it said, your mom is running for president in 2020. What would be her slogan? And everybody had like a million answers because everybody could think of like, oh yeah, this is what my mom would say. My mom always says this, or my mom, like this is my mom's catch line or whatever, what she's always saying.
I have it too. I mean, I always tell I'm a world-class lecturer. I mean, my kids, when I was writing the book, I asked them some of the things I did right and some of the things I did wrong. And they all pretty much said, I lectured them to death. And I had to learn to stop lecturing and listen. I had to just kind of like, you've heard zip it. I just needed to be quiet long enough and not interrupt them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just heading down this journey, just beginning, but I definitely have found, especially with one of my children who's not naturally as chatty, if I'm riding in the car with him, I just need to kind of clap my trap and sit. And sometimes when there's a big space of silence, something will come out and I'll be like, wow, okay, did not know that.
And I really recommend when that happens, don't respond. Just kind of tuck that away in your mama heart for a future conversation, because you will earn their trust that you are a safe person to be vulnerable with.
So when you say don't respond, you mean like don't criticize, clamp down, object, push back. Yeah.
Or what mothers love to do, don't try to fix it.
Yeah.
They will invite you into their private world when they know you are safe. They can trust you. That you will not shame them and guilt them and try to marginalize what it is that they are saying or how they feel.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that'll stem the flow of conversation real fast.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So, you talked a lot about tricky subjects that teens face. There's a whole section about some of those challenging topics like social media and, phones and all that kind of stuff, good stuff. But one of the things that really caught my attention was that you also pointed out that parents are dealing with a lot of tricky things, especially a lot of fears during the teen years. And the one that really grabbed my attention was that parents are dealing with a fear of peer pressure too. We always think, oh yeah, the teen years and they've got peer pressure, but wow, there really is a peer pressure impact on us. And I think, it reminds me of what you said earlier, that part of the reason that we have trouble loving them unconditionally is these expectations that we have. And it seems like those must be connected. My fears of peer pressure, like related to these expectations that I'm downloading onto my children.
Yeah, it's so funny. Look at what's going on as we're airing this podcast. There's a big news break about how some people were getting their kids in college. We've moved well past authoritative and permissive parenting. We are now all about making sure our kids don't stumble. They get into the best schools. They get the best jobs. And I think part of that is because that is a reflection on us. Our parenting, our person. And that's one of the worst things we can do for our kids. We just cannot let that happen. And how we avoid that fear is acknowledging that it is real, confessing it as wrong. It is wrong. We're not to compare each other to one another. Your child has been given a God-given assignment, and your family is in a race. Get in your lane. Stay in your lane, run your race. Build the family God has for you to build. And if others are criticizing you, or other mothers saying you're not measuring up, or your children aren't good enough, tune it out, because it's not their race. You're going to stand before the Lord and give an account of how you raised his children. Because frankly, they grow up and they move out.
And it seems like that tuning out is a real gift for me as a mom, but what a gift for my children to not, live with a mom who's kind of tuned in to all the competition and the peer pressure that I'm experiencing.
Oh, I mean, look at, tricky topics, social media. How many times do you look at Facebook or Instagram and you see all these perfect, happy, smiling families and adoring little children that they've had a baby and their teenager just adores it. But you have a baby and your teenager doesn't adore that baby because that baby is just now encroached on your life. And I have to say that if that is a trigger for you, stay off of it. If you can't see past the fakeness and understand that you're only seeing the highlight reel, then you need to stay off because it's hurting and harming your relationship with your child. It all goes back to expectations. You expect your child to perform, so others look at you and say, wow, you are a great mom. And can I just share a story with you? How are we doing on time?
Yeah, we're doing great. Please share a story.
Yes, I had a great first child. I mean, he was just an easy child. And to be honest, he made me feel like I was a wonderful mother until about 15. And then it was just this defining moment. And I often talk about create, shape, and form defining moments, and then tell that story often, because if you don't, your teens will, and they may try to rewrite history. So you want to get ahead of it.
Yeah.
But you know, we have children that are compliant, they're people pleasers, they want to do the right thing, they're naturally rule followers. But then I have children that are risk takers. Rules are just a mere suggestion. You know, maybe I will and maybe I won't. It just all depends on the why. And I often tell parents, let's just get to the why. Don't let the one child who is, quote, the model child be a defining factor for who you are as a mother. Your children do not define you. Your good children isn't a stamp of approval of your great parenting, and your bad children, if I were to say bad, if your children who are less compliant, more likely to question every single thing that you do, and they push back on your rules, they don't like your limits, and they really don't like your boundaries, that's not an indication that you are necessarily failing as a parent either. It just means you have to, as your teen changes, your parenting has to adjust. We do it in, most parents that worked, if they worked before they had children and they're not working now, or they're working now, you have to adjust in the market space to moodiness, to coworkers that may or may not like what you're doing right now. There's really no different in the family unit. They're little individuals with their own set of ideas. And you as the mom get to corral all those wonderfulness, all the great character qualities and all the weaknesses, and help guide them to show them, again, I'm going to refer back to what you've brought up a couple times. You want to paint pictures of possibilities of what God can do using their strengths and helping them manage their weaknesses. Lena, oftentimes we focus so much on their weaknesses. They bring home, 4 A's and a B. And the first question is, well, why didn't you get 5 A's? Why did you get a B? Instead of, whoa, you got 4 A's. That other class must be a little harder. Let's breathe life into these children. They will remember that. They will remember how you react and how you respond to their weaknesses and their insecurities. So I say, let's build them up, not puff them up with pride. And we don't avoid correction, but we do want to avoid criticizing, because those words just come right out of our mouth, past the gate, and straight into their heart. And those become defining moments in their life that oftentimes create hurt. And we talked about this earlier. Hurt is such a powerful wedge in our relationship with our teens. And I know you probably wanted to talk a little bit about that, hurt and how that impacts our relationships and what we can do about it. But just don't compare yourself. You are going to do your best. And every night you wake up, and I always tell moms to do these 2 things and write these things down, moms and dads that are listening. Every morning, I want you to devour God's word. I want you to think about what you have planned for your day. I want you to fill up, refuel, and refresh, so that throughout the day, you're able to divide, and you are able, and I'm going to use this little picture that I have because I love illustrations. This little picture, you've got to pour out all day long. constantly. And if you haven't taken the time in the morning to kind of fill up and plan your day and your responses, then you're going to struggle all day long with painting a picture. You'll paint a picture all right, but it won't be the one that you want. And then the next day, you're going to have to take that big wide brush and just kind of like paint over the mess and start again.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that picture analogy, filling up because you're going to be pouring out all day long. So true. So the last question that I had to ask Connie actually is really beautifully encapsulated in one of the questions from the Q&A. So I'm going to get to that in just a minute. I just want to remind you that if you're not already, you're going to want to hover over my name up there, Lynna at Live Without Training Wheels, and click follow so that you can catch when I have other episodes coming up, which we do every Tuesday night, and you'll just get an email that will remind you when we go live, so you can hop over there and catch those. And also I'm going to pop up a little call to action button here at the bottom, a little green button, so that you can hop over to Connie's website and take a look at information about pre-ordering Parenting Beyond the Rules. The short version is you can find it pretty much anywhere, Barnes and Nobles and Amazon and all those kinds of places. So you can follow that link on the green button to read more about it, as well as what a bunch of different people have said about her book. And so that was kind of fun to read, all kinds of names that I recognized who've read your book and have great things to say about it. So you can hop over there and take a look at that. And then we're going to hop into the question and answer. And if you think of questions as we're doing this, that's fine. There, no cutoff time until basically the show's over and we log off for the night. So if you have more to ask, then go ahead and ask them. I'm going to start with this one, which is the one that really hits on the question that I was thinking of beforehand. Wendy writes, loving unconditionally during teenage years is maybe what I failed to do well. I want to hear what your guest says on this. It's crazy hard to be rejected by your own beloved child. How much of this is snowflake attitude on this generation? Seems to want to be a victim and place all responsibility back to others. My son is unwilling to even talk about a way forward. I feel so helpless. Yes, he is hurt, and yes, so am I, but he seems to like being a wounded victim. Learned in college, question mark?
So if it's learned in college, I'm assuming that's a little older, and that would be, yes, those can be. However, this is the truth. We are a work in progress, and we can change, and we can restore, we can mend our relationships, and we can fully come back together. There's some things that I had to practice a lot. And that was, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I accused you wrongly. Going back to our conversation about listening, I'm sorry I failed to gather all the information before I made that assumption that you were involved in that shenanigan. And as my kids will say, I did that more than I wish I would have, which is probably why I wrote the book, to save you the heartache that I went through. But when we have to get through hurts and wounds and restore the rest and rebuild a relationship, we have to go to the why. And this is going to take some work on your part, Mom, especially if your son's not willing to do this. But you need to write down why. What was it that you said? What words fell out of your mouth? What reaction did you make? And I'm not accusing you, Mom, but let's be honest. We are the adults in this situation, and we are the ones that can go back to our child to start the rebuilding and the repairing of a relationship. So I have journals, and I was going to show you these. I have like multiple. I won't show you what this one is, but I carry journals for just about every topic. And I created an action plan called Albers in Action. And I would write down certain things because I needed to know, what is it that I could say or do that would build up or tear down? Our mouths build up or tear down. What areas did I do? And my son would often tell me, Mom, you always assume the worst. So I started writing things down. Which child do I tend to treat a little differently? What have I said? How can I go about fixing that, my part? Lord, I'm sorry that I said that. God, help, give me wisdom and discernment to know exactly what to say to reach the heart of my child. It is never too late. It's always too soon to quit. It's never too late to repair a relationship, but it's always too soon to quit.
Mm-hmm.
So if he is resisting you, I'm taking it he's under the age of 25. I don't know why, but something happens when your child reaches 25. It's like their brain settles down. They kind of get secure in who they are. They've learned some hard lessons along the way, and suddenly you're not quite as strict as you once were or perceived that you once were. They gain wisdom. I want to express that that you need to be life-giving, that you need to ask them why. And I like the 5 whys. Why? What have I done? And then why are we, how can we repair this? What can I do? Is what you're saying reasonable? And I like to go through this checklist of what would you say about this? What do you think about trying this? What if we did this? Because is a powerful word. I want to work on our relationship because we are going to be doing life together, not just right now, but together in the future. When you no longer have to live here or want to live here, we're still going to be doing life together. When we talk about repairing, it isn't so much a snowflake entitlement, but it does speak to what you need to do. It's listening, it's asking leading questions with not allowing your face to react or your eyes to dilate or your face or your eyebrows to furrow. You don't want that to happen. You want to be able just to sit and let them listen and talk. Now, if they continue to be resistant, go to the why. Why are you pushing back? Do you think that the rules we've established or the limits that we've placed, do you think those are too restrictive? If so, why? What kind of freedom would you want? Why? Why do you want that particular freedom? What would you do if we gave you that freedom? Do you feel you would be able to manage? Those types of questions all of a sudden puts them in control of, oh, wow, I have to think about this. I will be answering for this, and paint the picture of one day you won't be living here and you won't have our protection. We won't be able to help guide you. We won't be able to help bail you out. We won't be able to help run things past, you can't run things past us. What is it that we can do now to win back that heart? Because you can win back his heart and restore that relationship. I hope that made sense, and I hope that you were tracking with me on that.
Yeah, I sure was. And I found it fascinating what you said about age 25. I mean, that wasn't necessarily the most salient point that you mentioned there, but that was the one that jumped out to me as new information. So
I know. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry if you're thinking 18, it's kind of over, but I found 18 never really worked for any of my kids. It was a long process. For some of them, it was easier than others, because making a transition and accepting responsibility in a world that basically says, as your listener said, they don't want to accept responsibility. They want to blame everybody. That's easy. But when you can show them why and the power that comes from being able to accept responsibility, that changes the course. Here's an example that I love to use with my kids. They wake up every morning, your teenagers, and they select what shirt they're going to wear, what shoes they're going to wear, what pants they're going to wear. For the most part, during the teen years, they even get to decide what they want for breakfast, cereal or eggs or something, unless you have a large family, and in that case, they don't. But they make a lot of choices that are very self-governing. Therefore, they also select what thoughts you're going to have. And mom, you choose what thoughts you're going to think. You choose what thoughts you're going to put in your mind. As you are thinking about your son, that's very powerful. That's a very powerful statement. Let them know they select the thoughts that they think and the reasons that they think them. And then ask them, is that taking you where you want to ultimately be? Because I promise you, you will not be living with us and under our authority your entire life. And some of them will be like, oh, yay. But most of them will be like, that can be a scary proposition.
Sure. Yeah. Penny says prefrontal cortex at the front of the brain does not fully develop until about age 25. That sounds like right about what you're talking about.
Yeah, I did the research on it out of desperation. I was wondering when some of this was going to settle with them. You know, when a lot of times they have insecurities as well. They're insecure about who they are. Where do they fit in? Where do they belong? Social media is trying to define them. Social media and bullies are trying to hurt, harm, and destroy them. It's not that social media is. And if you don't mind, I'd love to touch on social media because that's such a crucial element to parenting right now. And I've been working in social media for 10 years now. Technology isn't evil, it's neutral. Online isn't safe, period. And parents who think maybe if we can just push it off and wait a while before we introduce it into our home, our children, you know, we can avoid a lot of this. I'm not advocating for giving kids, 10, 11, 12, 13 smart devices that are unfettered. But I am advocating teaching and training your children how to utilize social media and technology in a positive manner. And I like to do that by, again, painting pictures of possibilities. What could they do using their voice to create a positive social impact? Whether it's the Pug Society and they're really passionate about saving pugs, or both of my daughters were really passionate about the human trafficking and creating awareness for that. Help them see that they can use it for good. Help them see that you're not just placing a lot of rules and restrictions and limits, but you want to come alongside them and show them how they can use it for two reasons beyond just the fact that you want to keep them safe and from being bullied. But chances are 1 out of 9 children will either be cyberbullied or will know someone who is. So the chances are very high that that's going to happen. When they know you're not just adamant against it, they're not as likely to, hide under the sheets at night you can see the light illuminating under the sheet. They're not reading a book. And it's not their Kindle, but they see, you can just paint a picture of why and explain, listen, colleges, over 50% of colleges use social media presence to gauge if they're going to accept your child into college. Over 50%. And by the time your children reach there, it will be even higher. They want to see your children are involved in community, but they're making a positive difference for community. The other thing is that they're not being, they're not really trying to create strife and friction on social media either. There is a dark side to social media and to the online world, which is real. Again, if your kids know, you're not just trying to hover and keep them and restrain them from all harm, then when they stumble into an area they're not supposed to stumble into, or somebody creates a chat with them that you aren't aware of, they'll come to you and they'll say, hey, Mom, Dad, so-and-so's befriending me, or what do you think about this? All of a sudden you become their ally and their go-to, their advocate for it. The second thing is employers do the same thing. They look at your social media to decide if they're going to hire you or not. So those are pretty big reasons to help your child learn, because once you wait till they're 18, they can get in all sorts of trouble because they haven't learned restraint. They haven't learned your wisdom and your savvy for being safe and for protecting yourself, not just in your community, but online as well.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. There's a, and if all this is, ringing true with you and you want to hear more about that, there's definitely a whole chapter in the book, in Connie's book, about, these kind of touchy subjects, including the social media and the technology. So good stuff there. All right. So the other question that we have is, my child thinks everything I say is a criticism. Should I give up guiding them? How do I change this?
No, do not give up. Absolutely not. But what you do need to get to is find out why it is they feel you're criticizing. Do you have a sensitive child? Do you have a people pleaser? People pleaser children by nature are very sensitive to our disapproval. And if we are disappointed in the slightest of thing, it could be we're just thinking we're helping them. You know, sweetie, if you fold your shirt like this, or if you fold the towels like that, or please separate the utensils in the right holder, it makes it easier. We think we're being helpful, but to some children, they take that as they're just not doing it right, as opposed to who? Mom standards. Well, there comes a point when you raise your children where you have to step back and say, is this truly a moral right or wrong, or is this a preference? Do I want their shirts or their laundry folded a certain way? Do I want the bathroom cleaned a certain way? Do I want the chores? I call them chores, household responsibilities. There's so many different names, but you live in the house and we all have to participate in maintaining the house. Do we have certain unrealistic expectations that make us happy? You know, if a mom is happy, everybody's happy. And if the sink isn't clean, then mom isn't happy, and then no one's happy. Can we lighten up on that? Is there some area that we can just say, you know, for this season, it's okay, we can modify and adjust, and let's ask them, what is it that I am saying that you feel is criticism? How can I, and this would be a thought for your journal, and ask the Lord, how can I help them how can I speak in a way that they hear? And I would say to your listener and all your listeners, please write this down. Think about when you say something, how they're going to receive it. Because just as I'm speaking to you right now, I'm saying certain words and you're hearing them through your filter. Your kids are the same way. What you say may not be exactly what they hear. Ask the Lord to help you speak in such a way that they hear the heart that you're saying it, the why that you're saying it, and that it's not coming from a place of, this is just how it is. We have to be transitioning from holding the reins tightly and controlling everything, which is a misnomer anyway, because we really don't control them. We can think that we do, but they'll find a way around that, and then they start sneaking, and we don't want that. We want transparency. We want openness. We want honesty. We need our kids to know that they belong in our family. This is where they belong. Not some other family, not some other people group. We need to know that their identity first is found in Christ, but then within this unit, we're here to cheer each other on. Do your children know you are their greatest cheerleader? Do they know that? Have you communicated that through your words, through your actions, through letting up and changing and pivoting? Remember, master the art of the pivot. You're going to have to pivot. It's a beautiful dance that we have to learn. We have to learn to be life-giving. We have to learn that as we guide them, it's not pushing or dragging. It's showing them by piquing their curiosity. You know, I see that you're really good at this, or you seem to really enjoy that. Where do you think that could take you? I don't know. Well, no, I'm serious. Maybe you want, again, you're putting it on them. Maybe you'd want to consider where could your artistic ability lead you if you decided to really develop that talent? Where could that great math and science passion that you seem to have, where could that take you in your life? Could it be in the financial industry? Could it be in the engineering? And you're leading them, not dragging and pushing them. You're just putting one step in front of them and letting and illuminating it. I love to think of, I wish I had my flashlight here, but I love to say you're like, you're a leader who shines the light, and you're shining a light down a path. And that path is to help illuminate their way, not to say, this is how you go, but this might help you in figuring out where it is that you're going.
Yeah, So when you were saying a moment ago about, thinking about how your teen might react to what you say, even writing down, what their reactions have been or what you might say and what their reactions might be, it really struck me that we don't have to necessarily lay blame on one side or the other. Like either mom is being bad or the kid is being bad. It could be neither. It could just be like you have a good heart and goodwill towards your child and you say something and it really does hurt them, not because they're just being difficult, but like you said, the filter that they're hearing it through. And so it's okay as a mom to say, okay, like you said, pivot. It's not like, oh, I'm a bad mom. It's like, okay, I'm learning more about this child and what they're going to hear when I say it this way, or, especially a child who has particular insecurities and hears lots of things as criticism, then you just, you're not like shaming yourself. You're just informing yourself about, okay, this is how this child, is filtering what I'm saying. I'm just gathering data on their personality and how I can love them best.
And then write it down. All right. I think I'm going to create a nation of moms who hum, because this is something I practice and I practice to this day. I am an extrovert. I am a mother who likes to fix things. I mean, we've been fixing things for our kids since they were born, discerning, oh, they need this. Okay, let's fix it. And all of a sudden they don't need us to fix things anymore. And they really want to solve them themselves. I tell of a story in the book where my daughter was trying to share what was going on with her. And of course, me being a data collector, that's not my vocation, but, I want to get to the heart of the matter, right? So we can fix this in 3 easy steps. And I asked, and she's telling me the story. And so I start to ask her questions. She got so frustrated with me. And she looked at me and she just said, "Stop interrupting me." And I was so taken aback by that. She's a good kid. And I said, what did I do? And she said, "Mom, every time you interrupt me, I lose my train of thought." Who knew I could be so disruptive to your train of thought? I had no idea. I gave her the freedom to share that information without me getting on her. I said, "Thank you. Thank you." And then I learned to just be quiet and let her finish her whole story. And then I would ask for permission.
Yeah.
Are you just wanting to vent and share? Because you can solve your own problem, sweetie. You have the tools and the tips. You've got the wisdom and discernment. Or do you need my insight? Once your teen invites you to share your insights and your wisdom, then it falls on a tender heart. Give your kids some permission to let them just chat away without you reacting or overreacting. So when I said creating a nation of mothers who hum, I had to learn when something was being said that I either didn't agree with or I had a strong reaction to. I would just hum. I would hum a song that I had in my mind, or a hymn, or a praise song, or a favorite song that I liked, or for me, a Disney song, because it helped me process what I needed before I spoke. I didn't want to react or overreact, and it gave them time to not like, watch out, here she goes. She's going to, go into her lecture mode and tell me how I need to fix everything, or how bad I am, or how, I'm just not smart enough to fix this problem. They also learned if I was humming, it was probably not a really good time to come around and ask the keys.
You had something you were processing.
I was working out. I was working on something, and they probably didn't want to interrupt me. It has served me well to this day, and I have been doing it. I have been humming when I try to process so that I can respond properly and in love to my children for over 10, 15 years now. It has saved relationships. It has saved conflict. It has saved arguments. It has saved hurt feeling and resentment more than I can possibly express. So it may not be humming, but make sure you give yourself some time away and separated from the situation so that you can either settle down and they can settle down. And you can just think clearly and let them come back to you and ask you for your guidance and your help. Or you just say, "I know you can solve this. You just let me know if you need any help. I'm here, but I believe in you. I know you have been taught well, So use the skills that you have been taught to solve this problem. And it's empowering.
I think you and I are probably a lot alike in that. So I'm an extrovert as well. And I'm also a process out loud kind of person, you know, so like my husband and I could read the same book, and he wants to read the whole book cover to cover, maybe read it through again. And then a couple of weeks later, he will have some thoughts to share that are really profound and have been processed thoroughly and are very wise and connected to all other kinds of learning. But I want to, about every 2 pages, be like, oh, I got to read you this. This is really good. What do you think? Doesn't that remind you of so-and-so? And, you know, like everything I'm thinking out loud. But that
so
really
do you do that during movies as well? You know, you're watching a movie and
yeah, well, actually, we both do that during movies. So I don't know, maybe that just matched up properly for us because we both enjoy that. But but it really can, you know, bite me when I do that with my children, like to react out loud and say out loud what I'm thinking instead of just kind of like, hey, just sit on that for a little bit. So,
you know, we have to remember the Lord just says, come to me. He says, come to me. And we want to have our children know that they can just come to us, that we're there. I mean, I am focused on helping parents understand you can celebrate the teen years. Create defining moments, create moments, capture them, find something that your child is doing right, and then talk about it. I mean, goodness gracious, we're so good at pointing out all that they're doing wrong. And they're used to that. And I say, let's discover what's right with them. And then let's talk about it and let's frame that into a story. And this is what I want your listeners to know, because I am sitting on the other side. I listen to what my kids chat about at Thanksgiving. I know the things the little things that I used to do that now they laugh at, not laugh at me. There's a very big difference. But some of the sayings that I have, I know they're going to be using them with my grandchildren because they were effective, but they do kind of make fun of them now. But our goal is to guide and not shove and push and manage and control. Our goal is to connect with them in meaningful ways. Our goal is to listen to what's going on in their heart. They want to talk to somebody. And research has proven you are the primary influence in your child's life. And for those of you that are struggling, and I'm going to tell you, you're going to have seasons where you think you've got this parenting teen thing mastered until something happens. A best friend speaks poorly of them and crushes them, or until a sibling marginalizes them and makes them feel like they're less than smart. There will be things that cause you to slip from the mountaintop down the side of the mountain and into the valley. And it's when you're in the valley, they've got to know you're walking alongside them. But these are years to celebrate, because these are the lives you just get a picture of. What do you want your lives to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Do you want them to call you at Thanksgiving and say, hey, Mom, what time are we having Thanksgiving dinner? When are we having Christmas? Or do you are coming for Thanksgiving, right? You are going to come over for Christmas to see your siblings, right? Nobody wants that. We want them to want to call us and say, let's go to the movie. Let's go on vacation and I'll pay my way. We want those types of relationships. So I would say we're getting close to wrapping this up. I am going to challenge you. If what you say you want when your kids are 5, 10, 15 years, the vision that you have for your family, the relationships that you say are so important that you're working on today, if that is true and that's really what you want, then pay attention right now. Make today matter, because you're working toward that goal. You're not going to be there yet. You're working toward it. So when I said earlier, it's always too soon to quit, I mean it. It's always too soon to quit. There is never any situation, anything that our kids could do to others, to us. They could get themselves in trouble and embarrass us, embarrass them, hurt the Lord. There is nothing that they can do that stops us from loving them the same way that we love them when they were placed in our arms and we held them and we said, oh, they were just absolutely perfect. Nothing can happen, and we can't let anything happen if what we say matters, and that when we're finished really matters. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I'm just going to read a couple of comments over here.
Okay.
Penny said earlier when you were talking about social media, Penny said getting around other kids at their first jobs can cause a lot of problems too, similar to those first interactions on social media. And she says she's more like me in terms of how she processes what she's reading. Did you want to say something about the jobs? Have you had?
I'm just going to tell you, I always like to be one step ahead of my kids. So if you know that they're going to be exposed to things in the workplace, they're going to be exposed to YouTube videos they probably shouldn't be seeing, language they shouldn't be hearing, sexual conversations that they probably, you would not want them involved in, prepare them ahead of time. You know, these kind of conversations might happen. Maybe they won't, but they might happen. So you want to be prepared when they happen. How are you going to respond?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to walk away? How are you going to save yourself from seeing things you shouldn't be seeing? Maybe go, make a drink, or go fill a soda for somebody, or go take an order, or go sweep the floor. Give them ways to avoid the problem before they could potentially be introduced to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Strategies ahead of time that they can use. Penny also says, my one daughter talks to her daddy more than she does to me. It used to bother me, but I'm glad she at least talks to one of us.
Well, understand sometimes our daughters are very much, and I don't know your daughter, but I have two daughters. And if you're familiar with the term Mary and Martha, Mary is a very laid back, they just enjoy, they're fully present everywhere they go. And then you have Marthas, and Marthas are they just got to get things done, and they measure their minutes to the very second. And if your daughter is similar to you, some of the things you can do can really irritate them because they don't like what they see in them during the teen years. Give it time. They'll I know people say this and it's not fun or frustrating, but give it time. They actually do end up coming back. I would also say, do cultivate that. Do not say things to your husband that would make it sound like you're envious or jealous. Just pray about it. Look for opportunities to speak life and love into her, and find ways that you can praise who she is, not what she does, so that you continually cultivate a relationship over time and letting her know that you're always there for her. You don't need her to come. It's more of a want. And in time, she will need that relationship with you because you'll understand how, young teenagers and how young women think.
Yeah. And sometimes our kids just, for whatever reason, connect a little more with one of us than with the other. And I guess that's why God gave kids two parents in most cases. Yeah.
It is kind of hard because you're the one that labored and birthed them, right? Mm-hmm. So often we want to say, listen, I brought you into I was 12 hours in labor for you. Yes. But, they really are God's children. And he is just entrusting us to steward them because they have an assignment. Help them find the assignment. And they will be so grateful that you do, especially as they get older.
Excellent. Excellent stuff. Okay. So just a quick reminder before we hop off, the green button underneath our faces will hop you over to Connie's site so that you can see more about this book and where you can find it. It is called Parenting Beyond the Rules, Raising Teens with Confidence and Joy. And Connie's got her copy too. And Connie, when does this book release? Is it April 1st?
It releases April 2nd, but I did see on Amazon April 1st. So typically we'll see. But it's the scheduled release date is April 2nd. So just 3 weeks from now. Okay. Now, Lynette, they can pre-order it now. Yes. I really recommend that. And they can get it at Nav Press for 20% off with an additional 20% off using Connie 20 code. So that'll save them some money.
Okay, Connie 20. So I'm going to write that in the comments here right after I log off, and then I'll go and add that to the Facebook and YouTube videos as well. So you can grab that if you're watching the replay. Connie 20. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us this evening, and especially thank you, Connie, for taking your time to be here and to share with us some really rich encouragement and wisdom. And go grab a copy or pre-order Connie's book.
Let's celebrate teen years.
Yep. Night, y'all.